It is unfortunate that the American people have been placed in a position where they are being completely hijacked by their leadership. If the voices of the American public are not made clear that a third conflict in the Middle East is unacceptable, the entire planet is going to have to pay. The real tragedy, unfortunately, is that we, the American public, took so long to awaken from our mental stupor, that our society has been robbed blind by the people who swore to protect it. By riding the wave of fear following the September 11th attacks, the Bush administration has consistently used taxpayer money and the country's military to fight a personal crusade for oil. Believing we were in danger, we allowed the Bush administration to warmonger and consolidate power. Every time the Bush power block has been made to account for corrupt practices or lack of oversight, a member of the administration either falls on his sword or is offered up to quell the public outcry. Invariably, the status quo is preserved and business goes on as usual. This can be witnessed in the $100 billion spent on private military contractors like Halliburton, KBR and Blackwater. These companies operate under what is called a cost-plus system, where they are reimbursed for every dollar spent and given an additional sum to collect as profit. The cost-plus system encourages spending as a means of generating profit. The more a company spends, the more it receives, with no limit to what can be earned. Additionally, most of Halliburton's contracts have been won without a contesting bid. Vice President Cheney is Halliburton's former CEO. To this day, Cheney is still receiving money from Halliburton, which enjoys special favors such as sit-downs with the administration to discuss post-war oil production in Iraq. In addition to lack of oversight, these companies, when caught defrauding the U.S. government by the General Accounting Office, have not been punished and have continued to be awarded contracts. For example, Halliburton was caught charging the Coalition Provisional Authority in Iraq for feeding American troops 45,000 meals a day, when in fact only 14,000 were being served. Items such as this no doubt contributed to the coalition losing an estimated $9 billion, which disappeared into thin air, as it cannot be accounted for. The United States has fared no better. The U.S. Forest Service, overseen by Bush appointee Mark E. Ray, a former timber lobbyist, has brokered a deal to allow logging giant Plum Creek to turn its 8 million acres of national forest into residential subdivisions. To make matters worse, a new deal proposed by Bush on Monday, August 11th, gives federal agencies the ability to determine themselves whether or not wildlife will be endangered by construction projects. This deal would give any federal agency the power to ignore scientists' opinions as to whether or not a proposal would put species of wildlife at risk. This sweeping change to the EPA is the largest since 1986, and is no reasoned purpose except to, quote, ensure the EPA is not used as a backdoor to regulate the gases blamed for global warming, end quote. Now please stop and listen to what was just said. The defense for why the EPA needs to be gutted is to prevent it from being used to regulate greenhouse gases. Yes, you heard right. That's really what Bush's proposal claims as a valid reason for crippling the Endangered Species Act. Hell, why not just rip up the Constitution? Because it might throw a wrench in a criminal investigation. But you probably already know a little about the Patriot Act, so we won't bother repeating it. Let's also look into the current problems with the housing market, when the national real estate bubble burst because of the near-criminal practices of mortgage companies and their adjustable rate loans. Who came to the aid of the American homeowner? No one. Meanwhile, Bush bails out his friends in big business by announcing the government will keep the largest of the FHA lenders afloat through $300 billion in federal funds, despite the fact it was the lenders' questionable practices that led to the current crisis. Instead of allowing these companies to sink under the weight of their decision to make victims of the American public, the taxpayer is forced to pay to keep them in business. In effect, the American people are paying to have their homes taken from them by these dishonest lenders. The American people are paying a heavy toll in blood, sweat and tears, and it is inevitably up to you, the American citizen, to change the course of history. American citizens have to wake up and face the glaring truth that is staring them in the face. We have to take back our country. Protest, vote, make yourself heard. No one is going to save us. We must save ourselves. We have to hold those accountable in criminal court. We have to demand American forces not be deployed needlessly, and we have to demand the oversight which has been missing this past 8 years.